Well, first off, wonderful to be here with all of you. And there's not ever a question that doesn't start with growth when you talk about women's basketball right now. And I could not be more excited and proud for where our sport is.
They keep calling it a breakthrough. Headlines shout about record crowds, sold-out arenas, and sky-high merchandise sale. The WNBA is finally having its moment. But before we get swept up in the confetti, let's ask the blunt question. Is the WNBA's growth real or mostly smoke and mirrors? Right now, the league is pointing to a banner year. Record engagement across apps, league pass spikes, and attendance that jumped dramatically from the year before. Those numbers are real, and they've been used as proof the WNBA has arrived.
You're now seeing a more greater marketing. I'm putting on my Wharton marketing hat. You're seeing the marketing more of their players. So you're seeing sponsorship agreements. You're seeing, advertising agreements with WNBA players. You watch television now. You look at social media. WNBA players are now valued assets. So I look at each individual. If I were a player in the WNBA, I'd say, look, there's my contract value. In the short run, that's unlikely to be the biggest part of my revenue.
Still, there's a second, quieter story that doesn't make the highlight reels. A league riding the tidal wave of a few superstar-driven spikes, media deals still in flux, and business fundamentals that, when you look closer, don't always match the hype. The Caitlin Clark effect exploded attention and cash into the room. But how much of that is permanent growth versus a temporary fireworks show?
It literally pisses me off when people are like, she's not the face of the league.
Who would be?
What?
Sabrina? No.
No, there's really good, well-known people in our league. I'm not discrediting them. We have a lot of in our league.
Yeah.
Hell yeah to that. I'm all for that. But when people try to argue that she's not the face of our league, or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as
Yeah.
You're literally dumb as
In this video, we're ripping off the PR Band-Aid. I'll walk you through the numbers, the media deals, the attendance surges, and the painful realities teams and players still face. By the end, you'll decide, is the WNBA building a lasting empire, or is the league polishing a facade that could crack once the spotlight moves? Before we dig in, if you want blunt takes and receipts, smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell, because this one gets messy. To understand whether this surge is real, you have to know where the WNBA came from and how fragile its foundations still are.
We're seeing this big surge of interest in women's sports in particular. The WNBA is having a great period. Netflix just picked up the rights to the Women's World Cup. I remember during the Final Four a couple years ago, I was at a hotel somewhere and went downstairs into the bar, and it was all guys my age kind of jumping up and down and having beers and cheering. And then I looked up and they were watching Caitlin Clark in the Final Four. So it feels to me like there's this real...
Since launching in 1997, the league has lived on the edge. There were early TV deals, but the viewership was sporadic. Some seasons, attendance barely covered expenses. Owners often viewed the WNBA as a brand extension, not a standalone profit engine. Fast forward to 2023 to 2024. The league reported its highest total attendance in 22 years with 2.35 million fans, a 48% jump over 2023. Several games, especially those featuring Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, broke the 20,000 mark in single-game attendance.
I think 2023 was a pivotal year for women's sports. I think this really kind of marked the beginning of the surge that we're witnessing today. And it really started with the rivalry, but the undeniable talent of both Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese during their college careers. And during that year, to your point, the championship, their championship grew averaged 18.9 million viewers.
Then there's the media rights overhaul. In 2024, the WNBA locked in a landmark 11-year package with Disney, Amazon Prime, and NBC Universal, distributing over 125 games per season starting 2026. This deal is estimated to bring in $200 million annually, a massive leap from previous contracts. But here's where things get interesting. Expansion is in overdrive. The newest team, the Golden State Valkyries, became the first in WNBA history to exceed 10,000 season ticket holders before even playing a game. Their launch was backed by the Warriors' ownership and significant fan buzz. Meanwhile, off-court metrics are also showing structural shifts. Brands tied to the WNBA saw massive spikes. For example, apparel company Homage revealed that its WNBA gear sales jumped 900% in early 2020. 2024, and the jump held into 2025. Sponsorship dollars around the league are also rising. Teams like Indiana are projected to earn 50% more in sponsorship revenue in 2025 versus prior years. So yes, the trajectory looks explosive, but is this foundation built for permanence, or is it perched on a few supernovas like Clark, heavy investor optimism, and media hype? We'll peel that back next. Let's get surgical with the numbers, because this is where hype and reality collide. First, attendance. Yes, the league crossed 2.35 million fans in 2024, its best in 2 decades. But here's the fine print. Nearly every major spike was directly tied to Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever.
It's like going to a concert. And the anticipation when she pulls up from 30 feet, the reaction of the crowd, the attention from home, the emotional investment from fans, and a broad stroke of fans is unlike anything I've experienced in the sports that I cover. So covering her games is just a completely unique experience in the best way.
Games featuring Clark accounted for a massive chunk of league-wide attendance growth, often doubling or tripling the average crowd size. Take her first matchup against the Las Vegas Aces. More than 20,000 fans packed the arena, the highest in league history. But outside of Clark-driven events, many franchises still struggle to fill 5,000 to 7,000 seats. That imbalance matters. Now look at TV ratings. Yes, ESPN and ABC broadcasts hit record highs in 2024, with Caitlin Clark's debut drawing nearly 2.5 million viewers, the most watched WNBA game in 23 years. But the average game still draws under 500,000, and many League Pass streams don't even crack 6 figures.
And, you know, people sit there and say, well, maybe that's because of the Caitlin Clark being the Indiana Fever. But even if you took the Indiana Fever out of the equation, our viewership would still have been up 79% year over year. And so even with the Paige joining our league this year, we just had our new season kickoff last week, and we had the most viewed opening week in 21 years.
On one hand, the WNBA points to record revenue projections, expansion teams selling out season tickets, and the massive Disney, Amazon, NBC media rights deal. Those are real wins. But here's the contradiction. Players and coaches are still openly frustrated with travel, pay, and resources. The charter flight rollout, for example, was pitched as a game changer, yet reports surfaced that the system isn't consistent across all teams. Some franchises are still stuck flying commercial on certain trips, while stars like Caitlin Clark or Asia Wilson get the red carpet treatment. That double standard doesn't scream league-wide growth. It screams selective privilege. Then there's the marketing contradiction. The league claims to be bigger than ever, but who's in the spotlight? Nearly every headline, sponsorship, and ESPN feature centers on Clark. Players like Arike Ogunbowale or Nafisa Collier have been vocal about how media attention feels lopsided, and that tension is boiling inside locker rooms. The WNBA wants to brand itself as a collective powerhouse, but its growth narrative is dangerously close to a one-player league storyline, and that creates resentment. Another escalation: expansion hype versus reality. The Golden State Valkyries selling 10,000 season tickets before launch sounds like a slam dunk, but they're backed by the Warriors' billionaire ownership, Bay Area tech money, and one of the richest fan bases in the country. Contrast that with smaller markets like Indiana or Connecticut, where attendance surges are only happening when Clark is in town. So is this model scalable or just a Bay Area outlier? In short, the contradictions are piling up. The WNBA wants to paint a picture of equal growth, but the reality is a league that's still heavily unbalanced, financially, geographically, and in terms of star power. Now let's drill deeper into the mechanics of this so-called boom, because when you strip away the headlines, the reality gets more complicated. Start with revenue distribution. That $200 million media deal sounds massive, but when it kicks in, split across 12 teams and operations, you're talking roughly $16 million per franchise annually. That covers expenses, yes, but compared to the NBA's $2.6 billion per year deal, it's a drop in the bucket. The NBA learned this lesson decades ago. Jordan brought the eyeballs, but it took Kobe, LeBron, Curry, and others to sustain global dominance. The WNBA hasn't proven it can expand beyond its superstar bubble yet. Even sponsorships follow this uneven trend. Indiana Fever revenue is projected to grow by over 50% in 2025, thanks to Clark's marketability. But look at teams like the Dallas Wings or Minnesota Lynx, and you won't find the same corporate feeding frenzy. A league thriving on one or two franchises is not the same as a league thriving as a whole. Finally, there's infrastructure. Expansion teams look exciting, but until every franchise operates with NBA-level facilities, charter flights, and equal media exposure, the league remains 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So yes, growth is happening, but under the microscope, it's lopsided, fragile, and heavily dependent on a few bright lights carrying everyone else's weight. So what does all of this actually mean beyond the court? Because the WNBA isn't just selling basketball, it's selling an image of cultural relevance, progress, and representation. On the positive side, the league's surge has undeniably shifted the conversation. For the first time, mainstream outlets like ESPN, The Athletic, and even Wall Street analysts are treating the WNBA as a serious business story. Caitlin Clark jerseys sell out instantly. Angel Reese is landing national endorsement deals, and brands that once ignored women's basketball are now racing to plaster their logos courtside. This isn't just sports, it's a cultural statement. Women's basketball matters. But here's the flip side. If that statement rests too heavily on one or two figures, the league risks undermining its broader mission. Fans tuning in for Clark might not stick around for games without her. If corporate sponsors realize their ROI is tied to a single star, smaller market teams could struggle to survive once the hype stabilizes. That's not sustainable growth, that's a bubble waiting to pop. There's also the locker room impact. Veteran players who've carried the league for years, Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker, are watching as one rookie reshapes everything overnight. Some embrace it, others resent it, and that tension bleeds into the league's image. On paper, the WNBA is on fire. Record attendance, record ratings, record sponsorships, and a record-breaking media rights deal. It looks like the league is finally stepping into the spotlight it's always wanted. But dig deeper and you see the other story. A fragile ecosystem built on a handful of stars, uneven market success, and financials that still look modest compared to the hype. Here's the truth. The WNBA's growth isn't fake, but it isn't bulletproof either. It's real in the sense that fans are showing up, sponsors are writing checks, and media partners are betting billions on the future. But it's also a facade when the league sells systemic growth, while most of the surge is carried by Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and a few powerhouse franchises. And that's the tension. Is the WNBA ready to turn this spike into long-term stability, building true parity, spreading investment evenly, and developing multiple stars who can hold the spotlight? Or will it let hype dictate the narrative, ride one player's coattails, and risk burning out when the shine fades? Here's my take. The WNBA's future will be decided in the next 5 years. Expansion, sponsorship distribution, and how it balances superstar marketing with league-wide storytelling will determine whether this is the beginning of an empire or just a beautifully packaged illusion. One thing's for sure, the facade is cracking, and what's revealed underneath will tell us if the WNBA is finally breaking through or just pretending to. If you want the truth behind the headlines, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, because here we don't buy the PR spin, we expose it. And this story, it's only getting started.